In the last episode, we left our heroes triumphant but battered, victorious over the forces of oppression that had threatened to destroy their world. The darkness was vanquished, and the light of freedom shone bright once more. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the ravaged landscape. I stood amidst the ruins, my eyes stinging from the acrid smoke that still lingered in the air. The air was heavy with the scent of char and sweat, but beneath it, I detected a hint of something sweet hope. Kaya, Aria's voice rang out, echoing off the broken buildings. I turned to see her approaching, a smile on her face and a bandage wrapped around her arm. "We did it, girl. We're finally free." I felt a lump form in my throat as I took in the sight of our makeshift camp. Tents were being erected and makeshift hospitals set up to tend to the wounded. The sound of laughter and tears mingled in the air, a cacophony of emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. I nodded, trying to speak, but my voice caught. Aria swept me into a tight hug and I let out a shaky breath. "We did it," I whispered, my voice barely audible. As we parted, I saw Lyra, her usually stoic face etched with worry, tending to a group of injured fighters. Beyond her, Jack stood, his eyes fixed on the horizon, a look of contemplation on his face. Our little group of rebels had become a family, and in this moment we were finally able to breathe a collective sigh of relief. But as I looked out at the devastation, I knew that our work was far from over. There was still so much to rebuild, so much to heal. The weight of responsibility settled back onto my shoulders and I straightened, determination coursing through my veins. "Aria," I said, my voice firmer now, "we need to get to work. We have to make sure everyone is safe, and that we're prepared for whatever comes next." Aria nodded, her eyes sparkling with a newfound sense of purpose. "Let's do this, Kaya. We've got a new world to build." Together, we set to work, our footsteps echoing through the silence as the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky the night wore on, a blur of activity as we worked to establish a sense of order in the chaos. Tents were erected, fires were lit, and the sounds of laughter and music began to replace the echoes of battle. I moved through the camp, checking on the wounded and making decisions about how to allocate our limited resources. As I walked, I felt a sense of pride and ownership that I'd never experienced before. This was our community, built on the ashes of the old world. We were the architects of our own destiny, and the weight of that responsibility was both exhilarating and terrifying. I stopped to watch a group of children, laughing and playing in the midst of the devastation. They were the future, the reason we'd fought so hard. For them, we'd created a world where they could grow up free from fear, free to dream and explore. As I stood there, lost in the beauty of the moment, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned to see Lyra, her eyes somber, her face etched with concern. "Kaya, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice low. I nodded, following her to the edge of the camp. We walked in silence, the only sound the crunch of gravel beneath our feet. "What is it, Lyra?" I asked when we were far enough away from the others. "I've been going over the battle plans, trying to understand how they knew our strategy," she said, her brow furrowed. "I think I've found something." I leaned in, my heart racing with anticipation. "What is it?" I asked again, my voice barely above a whisper. "I think there was a traitor," Lyra said, her eyes locked on mine. "Someone on the inside feeding them information." My mind raced, trying to process the implications. A traitor among our own people. Who? I demanded, my fists clenched. Lyra hesitated, her eyes darting around the camp. "I'm not sure," she said, her voice hesitant. "But I think it's someone close to us, someone we trust." I felt a chill run down my spine, my mind racing with the possibilities. Who could it be? Aria. Jax, one of the other rebels. I looked around the camp, seeing my friends and allies in a new light. Who was hiding secrets? Who was working against us? The darkness was vanquished, but a new threat loomed, one that could destroy everything we'd fought for. I knew I had to act, to find the traitor and expose them before it was too late. But as I turned to Lyra, determination burning in my heart, I saw something in her eyes that gave me pause. A hint of uncertainty, a glimmer of fear. What did Lyra know that she wasn't telling me? The night air was alive with the sound of hammers ringing against metal, the rustle of fabric as makeshift tents were erected, and the murmur of conversations as our people began to rebuild. I walked through the camp, my heart swelling with pride as I saw the determination etched on every face. Lyra approached me, her eyes red-rimmed from fatigue but a hint of a smile on her lips. "Kaya, we've set up a makeshift hospital. We're doing what we can to tend to the wounded, but we need more supplies." I nodded, making a mental note to prioritize scavenging for medical aid. "I'll send out a team to scour the surrounding areas. We'll get what we need." Jax fell into step beside me, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "Kaya, I've been thinking. We can't stay here for long. We need to find a way to secure our perimeter. Make sure we're not vulnerable to another attack." I nodded, my mind racing with the logistics of defense. "I'll talk to Area about organizing a scouting party. We'll find a way to protect ourselves." As we worked, the stars twinkled above us, a reminder of the vast expanse of the universe and the unknown threats that lurked in the shadows. But for now, we were safe, and that was all that mattered. The night wore on, and the camp began to take shape. Fires crackled to life, casting a warm glow over the ravaged landscape. I walked through the rows of tents, checking in on the wounded and offering what comfort I could. As I approached the makeshift hospital, I saw a figure sitting alone, her back to me. Her long, dark hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall of night, and for a moment I was taken back to the memories of my own past, of the darkness that had haunted me for so long. I approached her slowly, feeling a sense of trepidation. "Lena," I whispered, my heart pounding in my chest. The figure turned, and I was met with a gaze that pierced through the darkness. Lena's eyes were sunken, her skin pale, but there was a spark of determination in her eyes that gave me hope. "Kaya," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." I reached out, taking her hand in mine. "You didn't mean to what, Lena? You didn't mean to survive." A single tear trickled down her cheek, and I felt a pang of guilt. I had been so caught up in my own struggles that I had forgotten about Lena's, about the weight of her own darkness. "I'm here, Lena," I said, my voice soft. "We're all here. We're going to get through this together." As I looked into her eyes, I saw a glimmer of hope, a spark of light that I knew would grow brighter with time. And in that moment, I knew that we would rebuild, that we would rise from the ashes, and that our future would be brighter than our past. But as I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of something that made my heart skip a beat. A figure, shrouded in shadows, watching us from the outskirts of the camp. My instincts screamed at me to be wary, to be prepared for the unknown threats that lurked in the darkness. I knew that our victory was short-lived, that the darkness would return, and that we would have to face it once more. But for now, I would hold on to the hope that burned within me, and the knowledge that I was not alone. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Our camp became a thriving community, a symbol of resilience and hope in a world that had been ravaged by war. I rose with the sun each morning, my heart filled with a sense of purpose as I tended to the wounded, worked with Lyra to organize our defenses, and met with Jax to discuss our growing network of allies. Aria was always by my side, her laughter and smile a beacon of light in the darkest of times. Together, we worked tirelessly to rebuild and restore, our bond growing stronger with each passing day. As the seasons changed, our community flourished. Crops were planted and harvests were reaped. Children laughed and played, their carefree voices carrying on the wind. It was a new beginning, a chance for us to create a world free from the shackles of oppression. But I knew that our work was far from over. There were still those who sought to destroy all that we had built, who sought to reclaim the power they had lost. I knew that we had to remain vigilant, to be prepared for the threats that lurked in the shadows. One night, as I stood on the outskirts of our community, gazing up at the star-filled sky, I felt a presence beside me. I turned to see Jax, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "What is it?" I asked, sensing a change in the air. "I've had word from one of our scouts," he said, his voice low and serious. "There's a gathering of forces to the east, a large army assembling under the banner of the Red Hand." My heart quickened, a sense of unease spreading through my veins. The Red Hand was a symbol of terror, a reminder of the darkness that had once threatened to consume us all. What do you think they're planning? I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. Jax's eyes narrowed, his jaw set in determination. I think they're coming for us, Kaya. I think they're coming to take back what they lost. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a sense of purpose that had been building inside me since the day we won our freedom. I knew that we couldn't rest, that we couldn't let our guard down. We had to be prepared to stand strong against the forces of oppression that sought to destroy all that we had built. We'll be ready, I said, my voice firm and resolute. We'll defend our home, our people, and our freedom. We'll fight to the last breath in our bodies to protect what we've built. Jax nodded, a fierce glint in his eye. We'll stand together, Kaya. We'll stand as one against the forces of darkness. And in that moment, I knew that our journey was far from over. I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with danger, that the battles we would face would be fierce and brutal. But I also knew that we would stand strong, that we would stand together, and that we would fight for our freedom, for our lives, and for the future we had created. The night fell swift and silent, the stars shining bright like diamonds scattered across the velvet expanse. Our makeshift camp buzzed with activity, the sound of hammers ringing out as we worked tirelessly to rebuild and restore. I walked among the tents, my heart swelling with pride as I saw the weary faces of my friends, their eyes aglow with determination. As I passed by Lyra, she looked up from her work, her eyes locking onto mine. I saw a flicker of concern, and I knew she was thinking of the wounded, of the ones who wouldn't make it. I nodded, a silent understanding passing between us. We would do everything in our power to save them, to heal the wounds that ran deep. Jax approached me, his boots scuffling against the dusty ground. Kaya, we need to talk, he said, his voice low and urgent. I followed him to the edge of the camp where the darkness seemed to swallow us whole. What is it? I asked, my senses on high alert. I've been thinking, Jax said, his eyes scanning the horizon. We can't stay here, not for long anyway. We need to find a safe haven, a place to call our own. This city is too exposed, too vulnerable. I nodded, my mind racing with the possibilities. We had always known that our victory would be a temporary reprieve, that the enemy would regroup and come for us again. We needed a plan, a way to ensure our survival. I agree, I said, my voice firm. But where? We can't just pick up and leave without a destination in mind. Jax's eyes locked onto mine, a glint of determination burning bright. I think I know a place. It's not perfect, but it's our best bet. We can head east into the mountains. There's a valley there, hidden from the world. It's our only chance. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I considered the proposal. The mountains were treacherous, unforgiving, but Jax was right, we had no other choice. Let's do it, I said, my voice firm. We'll gather the others and make our move. As we walked back to the camp, the stars twinkling above us, I felt a sense of trepidation. We were taking a risk, a gamble that could cost us everything. But I knew that we had to try, that we had to take a chance on a brighter future. The night wore on, the camp growing quiet as the weariness of the day caught up with us. I lay down on my makeshift bed, my eyes drifting shut as the stars wheeled above. Tomorrow would bring a new dawn, a new beginning. And I knew that we would face it together as one. The night wore on and the stars grew brighter, casting a celestial glow over our makeshift camp. The sounds of rebuilding and recovery filled the air, a symphony of hope and determination. I walked among the tents, checking on the wounded, and offering words of encouragement to those who needed it. As I passed by a group of fighters huddled around a fire, I overheard snippets of stories, tales of bravery and sacrifice. They spoke of the battles we had fought, of the friends we had lost, and of the moments that had changed us forever. I stopped for a moment, listening to Lyra's voice, her words weaving a tale of sorrow and resilience. She spoke of the early days, of the first whispers of rebellion, and of the unlikely heroes who had risen to the challenge. Her eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a pang of nostalgia, remembering the countless nights we had spent around campfires, dreaming of a better tomorrow. Kaya, Lyra said, her voice low, do you remember the prophecy? I nodded, my heart skipping a beat. The ancient words etched on the walls of the hidden temple had foretold of our victory but also of a greater challenge to come. "What lies ahead?" one of the fighters asked, her voice laced with concern. I took a deep breath, my gaze sweeping across the camp. We had won a battle, but the war for our world's future was far from over. "We'll face new challenges," I said, my voice steady. "New threats will arise and we'll need to be ready. But for now, let's focus on rebuilding, on healing, and on forging a brighter future for ourselves and for generations to come." As I walked away, I felt Jax's eyes on me, his gaze piercing through the darkness. I knew he was thinking the same thing, that our work was far from over, and that the true test of our character was yet to come. The night wore on, and the stars shone brighter, casting a silver glow over our camp. I lay down on my makeshift bed, my eyes fixed on the horizon, my heart heavy with the weight of responsibility. But even as I drifted off to sleep, I knew that I was not alone. I had my friends, my family, and together we would face whatever lay ahead, our hearts beating as one, our spirits unbroken. The next morning I rose with the sun, my mind racing with plans and strategies. We had a new world to build, and I was ready to lead the way. "Area," I called out as I walked towards the makeshift headquarters. "We need to gather the council, we have a lot to discuss." Area nodded, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I'll get the others. Let's get to work, Kaya. The future is waiting for us." As we gathered around the makeshift table, I looked around at the faces I had grown to love. We were scarred, we were battered, but we were free. And in this moment, I knew that nothing could stop us from forging a brighter tomorrow.